Moving on. Is the EU format less exciting?
God.
Kelsey Moser,
So
you've been in Europe for a month now.
I'm stealing Marx's brand here a little bit because he goes to Reddit and he finds people complaining about stuff and rants about it. So there's, there was a big thread recently. It's like, oh my gosh, the EU LCS format is so bad. Imagine if we had the NA format, then we'd have H2K and G2 and Fnatic, UOL all fighting each other. Rocket could make a last-minute run. It's like, no, I don't really think that that would happen. I think you just have like a very clear cut. You'd have a much more clear cut because I feel like top 3 to the next rung, and then from there they have more drops to the next rung, and there's just really clear cut, and it's harder to see that actually because of the group format. So in a way, the group format makes it more interesting. It's just that you don't actually get to see these matches play out as much. So, and if you look at LPL, there's like a ton of parity in that region with teams winning all sorts of stuff, and they have the same format, and the scores are much closer. So I really don't think it's the format issue. I just think that there's like this weird lack of parity in the EU LCS that people are complaining about.
I was going to say a lot of the things so I went back and read the thread, and a lot of the things that they bring up, especially so they brought up how exciting Korea has been this split. They're like, yeah, like Wangzhou is about to take first place and SKT is doing really bad. But those aren't, in my opinion, those are not format things. Those are just SKT has struggled since Rift Rivals. And so now you have a genuinely like different, I guess, look at Korea, because previously, so like all of last year, it was the Rocks Tigers dominating everything, but then SKT would sneak up and beat them, right, until summer. That was always the thing. Like the Tigers could never beat SKT, and SKT was destined to win and all this other stuff. So I think that this split, there has been a little bit more parity at the top when you look at top Korean teams. I do not think that that is because of their format. In fact, I think it has absolutely nothing to do with their format. I think it has to do with the fact that you did have a lot of teams improving from last split, and you had SKT kind of really starting to show some of their struggles that they actually did have this past spring, but weren't exploited as well by other teams. So I mean, I don't think it's I guess I am not arguing against if this person feels like watching Europe has not been as exciting, and that is their opinion, and that's what they've thought from watching it. But I don't think that it's a format issue.
Yeah, the problem is separating how boring Europe is generally from the format.
I mean, Europe to me, I think has been much more exciting this split than last split. And obviously people want to see more. I think people just want to see more G2 versus H2K or more H2K versus Fnatic. I really don't want to see Unicorns of Love play more games. I mean, that's in general the problem though, is that for me, is that there are just like too many regular season games until you get to the playoffs anyway. So to me, you're just asking to add more of these matches that ultimately people aren't even going to remember or think of as meaningful when we get to the semifinals. And so I just don't even think that it's like, why do you care suddenly? When you get to the playoffs, you're going to be complaining about how the regular season was too long anyway and none of the matches mattered.
I think the format, especially last split, when I was paying a little bit more attention to Europe last split, I think that like really exacerbated some of the problems that existed in Europe anyways, where it's like you have really bad teams, like horrible teams in both groups, and it just makes every game involving that team boring. So it's like the top teams playing the bottom teams are boring, the bottom teams playing the bottom teams are boring, and then yes, you have like the cross conference or whatever battles, which are cool, but like you said, this format would probably be sick if there was more parity in it, where like you get to have the really hype cross-conference battles that make it seem like which one's actually better, and you can have this discussion as opposed to like it is now, I think.
And obviously, like it is cool to see more G2 versus H2K, but what isn't necessarily cool is to see more NIP versus Monkeys or stuff like that. So
you're gonna get more matches of both kinds with like the NA format,
Yeah.
and that's just the thing is that EU doesn't have parity right now, and that's gonna make it boring either way, I think.
So would it have been better for them to switch back to another format until they actually get teams that are good?
I mean, I think there would be boring aspects anyway. I think it's almost like
So
it's
Europe
more
is
exciting.
just boring.
No, I don't think
No.
Europe
I
is
mean,
boring.
this
No.
happens in every region, though. Like, and whenever people bring stuff like this
We
up,
play
like,
mid-cane. Do you guys play mid-cane? Let's go. Come on.
I like how you
Got
just
nothing.
adopt whatever country you're in at that time as your region. We play this. We do this. We do that.
I don't
We'll
even know where
see.
Kelsey's
Okay,
from
we'll see.
anymore.
Yeah.
Next month when I'm in the US, we'll see if I'm calling NA my
She's just
region.
chanting
there you go.
TSM on the show. That's what
So to be fair, if you look at Friday's games from this week in NA LCS, they were so bad. It was like P1 versus Echo Fox, and then the Mortals versus FlyQuest or something, and
yeah, I
like
think so.
both series were stomps, and then like we left, and it was just like those are problems too. Like NA has like with their format problems as well.
I guess the thing that I would like to ask whenever people, like, not ask you guys, but whenever people bring up stuff like format or like things used to be so much more exciting when pick arbitrary point in League of Legends history, is what do you think? So, like, taking away the discussion of like tournament formats, just looking at the league formats that have been adopted since 2015, we'll say, because that's kind of when everything normalized across the board. Like, what do you think regular seasons are supposed to be about? Because, like, coming from a traditional sports background, like, do I look back and look at every single Red Sox game and I'm like, this is the most exciting thing ever?
Well,
Not
you're
really,
using a
because there
baseball.
are so many of them. Okay,
We're using
baseball is
meaning of
cool.
life stuff, you know?
Anyway, yeah, I know people think baseball is boring, and maybe that's a whole other topic.
Well, I'm
because
just
they
saying
have
baseball
many
has
games.
like I like baseball, but it has a notoriously
Yeah,
awful regular season.
I think my point is that, like, when you have this large amount of games that is specifically for playoff seeding, like, that is the purpose. The purpose of the regular season is to seed teams for playoffs.
And
I
give
guess.
them room to grow. I would say like those are the two
Yeah.
things.
So, I mean, that is going to happen, I guess, is my, like, I don't know.
When,
I think a lot of people forget that that's more what, or I guess maybe I'm just weird. That's more what the regular season is for me, is to see, like, where teams end up and seed them prior to playing in playoffs, which are obviously a lot more important.
a 1 seed versus a 10 seed is not supposed to be entertaining and probably shouldn't be unless it like there's an upset happening and there's nothing you can do about that. But they still have to play each other.
Yeah.
See, what they have to do to make things more entertaining is that they have to make one of the players tape their fingers together on the top team and then see what happens.
Chelsea always
We need
has
more
these, like,
gimmicks.
she always does 2 to 3 of these a show where she'll be like,
Make,
And you always know
make
it's gonna happen because her
Beardson
voice
wear,
changes.
Like, oven mitts and then try to play middle.
Kelsey's voice
good.
changes and she says, you see, what they have to do is, and it's always like, oh boy, here we go.
When Travis starts getting ready to toss to the next segment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of which, EU coaching, still in Europe, the great state of Europe.